Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. So I felt like Friday's episode never quite clicked. Can I do better today? Let's see. The United Nations General Assembly was in town, which just ties up traffic in New York, and then it rained on Thursday. Nightmare. Jimmy Kimmel said, in order to be allowed on the General Assembly floor, all leaders had to either be vaccinated or test negative for COVID, but they didn't have to show proof. They did it on the honor system. And if you can't trust China and Russia, really, who can you trust? Fallon. Next, the UN's going to be like, we believe further conflict with the Taliban will be avoided thanks to our latest pinky promise. Seth. Brazil President Bolsonaro entered the UN General Assembly Hall unvaccinated, violating both UN rules and New York law, but he got a hero's welcome on Staten Island. Great. Kimmel. Bolsonaro believes the vaccine turns people into crocodiles and bearded ladies. Crocodiles? This AstraZeneca's got a lot of range, I gotta say. Fallon, of course, the main focus of this year's General Assembly is fighting COVID. Yep, nothing like holding a super spreader event to tackle a pandemic. Ken Jeong talked about the pandemic on Corden. You may know Ken Jeong from Community, but he's also an actual doctor. He had a whole career as an internal medicine physician before he started doing comedy. Like, for real, look it up. Why would I make that up? Ken explained the Delta variant is so much more contagious than the original coronavirus. He compared the vaccine to an umbrella. With the original strain, the vaccine was highly effective at protecting us from the virus, just like an umbrella during a normal rainstorm. Delta, he said, is more like a monsoon, in which an umbrella still protects you from being soaked to the bone, but doesn't fully protect you from getting wet at all. From KHAK, your headline, Norm Macdonald banned from Iowa. An article in 2017 in the Cedar Rapids Gazette tells the story. Back on June 22nd, 1997. Where were you that night? Do you remember? Cast members of SNL, Norm Macdonald, Jim Breuer, and Darrell Hammond performed their respective stand-up acts at the Hancher Auditorium at the University of Iowa. The three men were all standouts on the show, but Norm Macdonald was the big star, known for his time at the Weekend Update desk and his impersonation of Burt Reynolds. For many years, a company had held a golf tournament in Iowa City to raise money for the Iowa Athletic Hall of Fame and Finkmine golf course renovations. Okay, so that's the setup. Hammond went on first and provided dead-on impersonations. Then Breuer dealt in jokes about pot and booze, and then came Norm. It appears that Iowa officials thought that the comedians would all give performances similar to what they did on SNL. Norm Macdonald had no such plans. His act, according to then athletic director Bob Bowlesby, would be considered to be in very bad taste in nearly any venue in America. Needless to say, it was very NSFW. Audience members began to walk out. Parents with children in tow left Hencher stunned at what they were hearing, and Norm Macdonald loved at every awkward moment. Iowa officials were clearly not amused. Just how upset were they? They yanked Macdonald's invite to play in the golf tournament from the setup. See, there was a reason. It's like Chekhov's gun, Chekhov's golf tournament, and he was banned from the course. Do you think Norm loved it? In November of 1997, a writer from Rolling Stone visited Norm Macdonald's office at 30 Rock. Hanging on a bulletin board were two letters. The first, from Bob Dole, who Norm Macdonald often impersonated on SNL. The second, a letter from the University of Iowa telling him they had withdrawn his invitation to play in their celebrity golf tournament. Deseret.com spoke to Jim Gaffigan about being a clean comic. Jim Gaffigan said, I grew up in a small Midwestern town where you might curse if you stubbed your toe, but people would think, can't you think of another adjective? For some comics, it's stylistically authentic to how they perform. It'd be weird if Chris Rock or Louis Black didn't curse, but it's not like I don't curse in everyday life, and audiences responded to authenticity. People look at me and think, he could be from my town. I could hang out with that guy. I couldn't hang out with that guy. On his relationship with Utah, yeah, we're doing different states today. Iowa, Utah. Jim said, I feel a connection with Utah. I think it's because we share similar family culture. I find Mormons fascinating, said Jim Gaffigan. Even just their fry sauce, you know? I've had people bring me the Book of Mormon like a dozen times. They're like, you should be on this team. My comedy is kind of self-effacing, and the Mormons have a good sense of humor about themselves. I have a ton of material about Utah. He sure does. Todd Barry spoke to goodtimes.sc. Todd Barry's got an old joke about Fugazi, the almighty high priest of do-it-yourself punk rock. The joke rests on the idea that Fugazi didn't believe in charging more than $5 for a show, a fact lost on people outside of punk rock. Todd Barry wonders if everyone in the band was as bound to the principle as the band's leader, Ian MacKaye. The joke, perhaps the drummer had a different point of view. Hey fellas, I have the craziest idea. How about $6? I was thinking that extra dollar times 800 people a night, 5 shows a week, means I don't have to have a roommate when I'm 47. The joke appeared on a 2001 album, Medium Energy, so you had 20 years. I ruined the joke, okay? And if you're wondering, Fugazi band leader Ian MacKaye doesn't mind being teased. Todd Barry says, we met because of the Fugazi joke. I think he's good with it. He usually comes to my DC shows, and he's given me a tour of the Fugazi house. Gary Gulman spoke to the Last Laugh podcast. He revealed he's going on about 4.5 years of uninterrupted mental health. Good job, Gary Gulman. He says, I'm really, really grateful. It's probably the longest run I've had in my adult life. So I'm grateful and vigilant too. I'm careful about what I do every day as to not invite a relapse or another episode. I say grateful over and over again, and I hope it doesn't sound corny, but there's no better way to describe my state of mind these days. Gary's a good guy. Worked with him at Sirius on a couple broadcasts. The Hollywood Reporter said, hey, Jon Stewart, you recently joined Twitter, which had been Trump's platform of choice. Jon said, it's not for me. When you're raised on a stand-up rhythm, there's a showtime and there's an audience. It's 8 p.m. Your day is spent waiting for 8 p.m. And at 8 p.m., you go and talk to the audience. And when you're done, you leave. Twitter is an open mic that never shuts off. It's like if the cellar never shut down and the audience never left. So the whole time you're like, should I tell them something? Like a joke? I don't know if I'll ever feel comfortable with it. But you know what Twitter's great for? Telling you the things someone will never forgive you for. I almost view Twitter like I view Rotten Tomatoes. When the movie Irresistible came out, I'm not one of those guys who's going to tell you, oh, I don't read any of that. Of course I read it. I'm looking to see if the critics liked it, and they didn't, for the most part. So you're writing that score and feeling like it's a reflection of the worth of what you do. Luckily, audience response was much more positive, and that made me feel better in the moment. But I feel like Twitter's Rotten Tomatoes for your soul. In June, John went on a Late Show and went all in on the theory that the coronavirus originated from a lab in China. John was asked if he thought Colbert was entertained or maybe a little nervous. Jon Stewart said, I don't think he was nervous. It's not like he doesn't know what I'm going to say, but it was an inelegant way to get to a bit that I've done for years, which is our good intention brilliance will more than likely be our demise. The bit is about the last words that man ever utters, which are, hey, it worked. I guess I was a little surprised at the pushback. From Syracuse.com, the Syracuse Funny Bone, a comedy club located inside the expansion area of the mall. It's set to reopen next month. First on the lineup, Pete Correale, the Gator. He hates that nickname. He got that nickname when he was the co-host on Jim Breuer's radio show at SiriusXM, where I worked, and I know the Gator really well. He hates it. Too bad, Pete. Pete Correale, the Gator, will perform 5 shows starting October 21st. Other upcoming shows include TJ Miller, Jim Breuer in December. I guess you don't have to be vaccinated to go to the Syracuse Funny Bone. And Ryan Hamilton will be there in February. An official reopening date has not been announced, but an employee who answered the phone at the Syracuse Funny Bone told Syracuse.com the schedule's accurate and tickets are now on sale. Funny Bone is a national chain of comedy clubs, many of which reopened months ago. And the Comedy Store is launching Comedy Store Records. This venture kicks off October 13th with launch label night at the LA Club, and it'll be a full-service record label that will mine the Comedy Store's rich vault to issue hour-long albums, EPs, and specialty projects to be distributed via physical and digital media. Yes, guys, please actually sell these and clean up on the Grammys. Longtime listeners know I hate things that get released, say 846 copies of vinyl in Amoeba Records, and we pretend that's an album. Distribute these things wide and sweep the Grammys. Please do. Comedy Store CEO Peter Shore, who I'm guessing, I could look it up, is the son of Mitzi Shore. That'd be my guess. He'll co-run the label. He said, we're envisioning this as a step toward honoring the rich tradition of comedy albums like Richard Pryor, Carlin, and Lenny Bruce. When listening to vinyl was a time of wonderment and joy. We plan to offer vinyl for many of our titles. We hope to resurrect our old anniversary shows and hope those Comedy Store alumni will join in our new endeavor, while also tapping into the current crop of burgeoning stand-up who frequent our artist colony. And that is your comedy news for today. Better than yesterday, right? I rebounded. Nice. Follow the show. We'll try again tomorrow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Can Johnny Mac hand in 2 shows he feels proud of in a row? He can. I already taped Sunday, and I know it's good. See you then.